How's it going, everyone? I'm Gabe, also known as Achilles, and today I'm bringing you my Season 10 Apex Legends tier list. I would like to state that I'm by no means an Apex pro. I'm just a person who thinks he has a good grasp on the game competitively. I hope all of you can realize that these are just my opinions. If you have a differing one from mine, feel free to leave it in the comments, but please have it be constructive and not just attacking. I appreciate you watching the video, and let's just jump right into it. Starting off with the E tier, the bottom of the barrel in terms of legends is the bamboozler himself, Mirage. Mirage is in a terrible spot in the current meta, especially with the recent introduction with Seer. He provides practically nothing to the team and his whole kit is just old. He needs some love because the player base as a whole has gotten better and are less likely to be tricked by his decoys. Moving on into the C tier, the legends in C tier are the ones I think need significant improvements to be more viable in the current meta. Only person we really have in C tier is Watson. Watson is a defensive legend, and personally I think all defensive legends in the game kind of suffer, and Watson takes the brunt of it. Her pylons are on a significant cooldown, and also they're very predictable and stagnant. Although her ult can be very strong and provide a lot of uses, currently it's pretty buggy, and also her ultimate doesn't provide enough for her to be an actual viable legend in the game. Now moving into the B tier, we have a lot of legends in this tier. They're the ones I feel indeed need some work but are very close to being viable and are still played quite competitively. Bangalore is our first legend in B tier, and for good reason. Her smokes can still be impactful for misdirection and to block lines of sight for your enemy. However, with there being so many scan characters in the game now, along with a digi threat, she can be countered very hard, especially in the later game. Next in the B tier, we have Crypto. Crypto dropped a tier from my last tier list for the sole fact of Seer being introduced. Seer, in my opinion, is a happy medium between Bloodhound and Crypto. Although Crypto can provide safer information gathering, him having to be immobile while doing so greatly hurts his viability. Next is Lifeline. Lifeline only has power in her passive. Otherwise, her kit's pretty lackluster. The care package is nice. However, it's a big beacon on where you are. I think it needs some improvements in the fact that it can only provide a 1-tier upgrade. I don't think a legend will be any type of strong when all their power lies in when your team is going down and dying. The next person in the B tier is going to be quite a controversial one. Is going to be Lova. She was difficult to place in the tier list because her black market is actually really strong in the early to mid game, but almost completely falls off in the late game. Along with her tactical still leaving her very vulnerable while it's traveling through the air, she's going to need some love before I consider her to be very competitive. The new introduction into B tier this season is going to be Fuse. Fuse's buff to his ultimate and also the buff to the tactical makes him more of a viable legend, and you actually have to kind of respect his ultimate now. Along with the scan, the fire damage is actually pretty significant, and the fact that it also puts a slow on the enemy, it is very, very situational, but if you're actually able to land a good Fuse ult, it can really change the direction of your fight. And lastly, our final legend in B tier is everyone's favorite Marvin, Pathfinder. Pathfinder's fall from grace is saddening, and with the constant nerfs he received in the past, on top of all the new movement legends that were introduced, Pathfinder has really lost his place in being the movement king. He suffers from not having a passive, suffers from long cooldowns, and suffers from having a lackluster ult. Now, going into A tier, my favorite tier. If every legend was A tier in the game would indeed have balance. With the recent buffs to Caustic, I think he's in a terrific place. His gas is feared, and people now think twice on pushing a Caustic in a building he's set up in. Truly a defensive menace, as well as still being able to go on the offensive. Talking about recent buffs, the other legend to receive some changes has been Horizon. Horizon feels great again. Obviously nowhere near as strong as she was before, but with the changes, she definitely feels amazing to play. The fact that you can go up the gravity lift quicker and also stay at the top for a little bit longer, she just feels like how she was supposed to feel in the beginning. I'm glad she's not a powerhouse like she was before, but I'm so happy where she is now. Next one in our list is going to be Valkyrie. I would say an amazing Valk player can make her into an S tier, especially if they know how to solo ult and how to play around balloons. But overall, I think her outplay potential and the fact she can get your team in and out of positions almost instantly makes her a solid A tier legend for anyone to play. Lastly, the person I put in A tier solely for their ultimate is Revenant. Yes, the change to his ultimate where it pulses has brought him down in power a little bit. I still think it's very strong. It's always going to be strong whenever you get a free 100 health and false confidence. I know this is a hot take, but personally, I don't think Revenant should be in the game. I think he's unhealthy for the game in a competitive manner, and I really wish they would just rework him. Now, moving on into S tier, the best of the best characters in the game. Firstly, we have Gibby, with Fortified on top of his gun shield, along with the best offensive and defensive ultimate and tactical in the game. You're going to have a menace of a legend. If you are playing around his gun shield, he is the best sniper and shotgunner in the game. If you 1v1 a good Gibby, you're not going to win the 1v1. He is stacked in a 1v1. He has a free 50 health and a free 15% damage reduction. I personally believe Gibby is the best legend in the game and has been for a very long time. Next person we have in S tier is going to be Bloodhound. Bloodhound will always be a strong legend for the sole fact of his tactical. Even though they nerfed it a little bit in the last season, I still think it is amazing, and what more can you ask for an ability to show the entirety of the enemy team's positions. Along with his ult, it makes him a very, very fun and competitive character to play, and I'm really like where Bloodhound sits, but obviously since he is in the S tier, he could go with having some reductions in power. People often compare Bloodhound and Seer, but in my opinion they serve two different functions. Bloodhound shows where the entirety of the enemy's team position is, while Seer's passive gives a general direction, along with his tactical typically only singling out a single person. Since we already talked about him, obviously Seer is an S tier legend. He is insanely stacked and has literal wall hacks for free. No counter, no anything. He just knows. It doesn't really make sense to me that he has that for a passive, but obviously I'm not Respawn and I don't make the game. His recent nerfs did bump him down a bit, but he still remains, in my opinion, an S tier legend for the sole fact of his passive. Now for our last two legends in S tier, I'm going to basically clump them together as they sort of fit the same purpose. We have Octane and Wraith. The rotatability you get from either of these legends on the team is unmatched. However, Octane did receive a recent nerf that bumped down his power pretty significantly. I haven't tested it too much, so I'm just going to keep him in S tier, but he may be an A tier legend now. Another reason why I clumped them together is because Octane Pad and Wraith Portal are used synonymously. Sometimes the Wraith Portal is favored because of the safety it can provide, but Octane Pad can go a bit farther. That's going to be it for my Season 10 tier list. I hope you enjoyed. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. Please consider giving me a like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time, and be safe.